everyone doing this morning? Come on in. Get your good coffee. We got something for you to sip on today.
Period.
On in. Join us as we get our good selves together this morning. Welcome to Take a Look. Give a few people a few seconds to come on since we're a little late this morning.
We are on time.
Give us the morning hymn.
Honey, you can't rush perfection, honey. We are right on time for this Rhema word that y'all gonna get on today.
Okay, I see. And then Harriet Tubman is going to preach this morning.
Well,
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am Dr. Quinyon Scott, and I'm here with
Christina Cook, Washington Post Teacher of the Year.
All right, Washington Post Teacher of the Year, high five and awesome and congratulations. Thank you for joining us for Take a Look. We do have a disclaimer that what we say does not represent our organization nor the institutions that we attended. And we are excited, Coke. We got something really good. And
we do.
You know, this article that we're going to reference today. So in a couple of days ago in the Washington Times, there was an article that represented 3 million kids are missing from school because of COVID-19. And what is going on is that over the course of the year, specifically students that may not have had equipment, students that may have some harm may have come to their equipment, not being able to locate students. So USA Today came out with an article that said over 3 million children are missing. When we think about 3 million, I'm thinking about how in Maryland and in DC, enrollment numbers decreased significantly last year. Now, in many cases, it decreased because of pre-K4. And the idea was that parents weren't sending their pre-K4 to school, they were keeping them in daycare. And of course, we don't register daycare numbers. Where do you think about the number of students that are kind of like off the radar because they're no longer in school?
The numbers are like astounding. And it's just making me think about the last group of kids that I work with who were seniors. And many of them, honestly, because hold on, before I answer that, we have a couple of things we need to elevate this morning. Number one, we're at a year that we've been under the pandemic. I also want to say, Breonna Taylor, baby, the fight is not over. It's a year since she's been murdered. It's also National Reading Month. It's Women's Month. It's a lot going on in this month. And I just wanted to stop and just take a moment to talk about that because I think this adds on another layer to all the things that we're dealing with. So back to what you asked me. I had seniors who decided like they were going to work, because in the beginning stages of this, Dr. Scott, we couldn't really mandate children to attend and we couldn't penalize them for not attending school. And so we launched virtual learning in Grace and Mercy. And so I think we have created, we've created a culture where, hey, it's optional to participate. There's no one really checking the box and holding you accountable for not being present. Because even if we weren't virtual, if we were in the building, truancy and missing students is a problem. And I think the virtual space just exasperated that problem because now we can hide behind, hey, my computer isn't working. Hey, I don't have Wi-Fi. Hey, I don't have a charger. Hey, I don't have my computer because I'm at my grandmother's house and, I don't have a cell phone. So now we've just given students more, I don't want to say excuses, but we've given them more outs versus, where you're reporting when you come in the building, attendance is taken in every class. And then there's somebody checking and then making that truancy phone call to really follow up. I think during these times, we are a little bit more lax because we don't know what families are going through at home. And so I couldn't imagine just one kid being missing from virtual learning, right? Like, but you said over 3 million.
Yeah, so I think your point is well taken that of course this has been a problem. I also think that this is going to continue to be a problem, and really we really need to just focus on how do we help. So it's one thing not to go to school because you have all of these isms, right? And so whatever that excuse is, I'm just going to call it an ism. And it's another thing that because the pandemic has happened, you now make an excuse that school is not important. Or for the past year, if you've been doing, like you said, working, or you may have fallen in love and now you have a baby, or you've decided that you can't, this new thing is like, I can't do people anymore because I've been isolated for a whole year. So now I don't want to be around people. And we're talking about people who kind of like never really liked to be sociable, but they did it because it was just the thing to do. And now they have made this effort that like, I no longer want to be sociable. There has to be this moment of where we look to identify where the kids are. And I met with a group of friends yesterday and we were talking about like, well, what is there to do? Like, so what is there to do for a parent who's just not involved, which in urban communities, that's many parents. And, the kid doesn't have to come back. So my friend yesterday said that they're doing this hybrid learning. They start on Monday. And so initially there were 24 students in their pod. He called all 24 to make sure that, they were going to come back. And many of them were like, no, I'm not coming back. I'm just not coming. But then the school doesn't really have a clear plan. So it's like, in some cases, you go first period, second period, third period, you're only there half a day, which you know how we, even teachers blow off half a day. It's like, oh, they don't really count, or, it's just a half a day. It's like the Friday turn up,
Right.
A lot of times kids don't come, or where we used to be, kids would leave early if it was a half a day. So we stopped even having them.
Yeah.
But you figure, so now kids have to travel, catch the bus half a day. And so kids will then have to determine a priority, right? Is it worth me coming to school for half a day?
Right.
And even in that half a day, one of my classes are online. So is it really worth me coming? And so what you're going to have is, you may have the kid that really wants to come, or you may have the kid that says, my family's not home, y'all can come to my house.
Right.
Or it's going to be warm, so they can just hang outside, so they can still have that socialization. But I would argue many students aren't going to continue to come after like the first week, because schools are still trying to figure out, how do we do the hybrid? How do we teach half the students at home, or 60% of the students at home, and 40%? So I say, I'd like to say that you're going to lose a group of students just for this hybrid model. And I don't know how many students you're going to gain, but schools just have to figure it out. But what about the students who, you have some schools that go over above and beyond where their counselor checks, but you have other schools and there is no counselor.
Yeah, it's making me think, like, in this moment where teachers and administrators need to pull out some more tricks out their tool bag, right? I'm thinking about this, and this is really like a really petty example, but why do we make our beds every day when we're just going to get in them again? Why do we, brush our teeth if they're going to just get dirty again? So I think it's about teaching kids like the law of like the compound effect. I see you laughing, Scott, but think about it. Like, why would I go to school if it's a half a day? Well, because you can't get back that time that you missed in that moment, in that season, right? And so I'm thinking about, how do I inspire kids to want to show up for themselves? And I'm saying that to say, I have a group of kids.
That's like the answer. I mean,
like I'm saying that like now as an administrator, right? I am teaching a class, which I'm super excited about. And I'm thinking, man, their day is done at this certain time. How do I encourage these babies that this 45 minutes that they're going to spend with me is worth them logging back on in between the break that they get to learn? And I'm pulling out, I'm extra anyway. But I'm pulling out all the stops, singing, dancing, whatever they need, calling families and saying, hey, this is important, right? I need to see your kid because this is what's in it for your child. And so I'm thinking about, as you say, grappling, and I did my hands. I am grappling with, how do we get better at inspiring, right? We need to do a class on the power of inspiration, right? Because if we know it's good for them and we want them to be there, then how do we transfer that skill, that feeling, that passion over so that they'll show up for their own success? And here's the truth, right? You said I was going to preach today. I've been saying this since day one, and I'm watching the chat too. So when you see me look over, Scott, I'm watching the chat as well.
Okay.
You can never impart something on someone else that you don't personally possess. If you are uninspired, if you are unhappy, if you are depressed, if you are sad, that is the energy in which you are vibrating on. And unfortunately, the reason why your students are not showing up, because they can feel your negative energy vibrating on them. Let me prove it to you. Oh, honey, let me take my glasses off for this one. It used to burn me up. And I've worked with colleagues who've said this. It'd be a Monday morning and they would come into class and they say, oh, y'all, it's Monday. Woo. And what are you doing? You're immediately giving this energy that something's wrong with Monday mornings. Honey, I love a good Monday because it starts the week off. It gets us going. Or if it's raining, well, you know, it's raining. I know y'all tired. Why are you telling kids that? No, they're not. And let me tell you something. If you work in Anne Arundel County schools, that's where my kids go. Sorry, but I'm going to just put it out there. And you say some dumb mess like that to my kids, you're getting a letter because you need to check your mindset, right? That's what this is in this moment. And I'm sorry to say it, but many of us are walking around just existing. We are not living. And no shade, but if you were alive and you made it through 2020, right? And definitely take my hat and prayers to those who didn't. But if God saved you to move into 2021, then it's your job now to be an inspiration and help somebody else get over the hump in spite of. But you can't do that if you are dragging. So you're going to have to figure out what you need.
So this is the thing. I partially need to throw a flag on you.
Come on, throw the flag, sis.
Because I agree with you. You have to show up as inspiration. I agree with you 100%. But I also understand the teacher woe. You know, I'm doing the best I can. I'm still trying to learn the system. I know teachers right now that they have to go back to work, no choice. And they're doing both. They're in the class and they can bring their kids. They're in the building. And while they're in the building, they have their children with them. And they are not only teaching live, but they're still responsible for teaching virtual because you have a split. Some kids are home, some kids are not. That's a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
All of these dynamics, and everybody doesn't have the resiliency kick butt. Let me get myself together. And then you have, in many cases, just like our students are dealing with the social emotional woes of the pandemic, you also have teachers. So you have teachers that are dealing with loss and grief. Have the resurgence of coming back into a public space. You've been isolated. I know just about everybody I talked to said this is the first year, and I'm talking about those in education. This is the first year that they didn't have a cold.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, you know, it's this mental thing that, like, even though I want to go back out, I am so much safer at home.
I hear you, Scott, and the chat is mad with me this morning. And I hear all of y'all. Let me go. Hold on, Miss Devon Madden. Davon Madden. I hear you all, right? About how many more tricks. But my thing is this: if not you, then who? When we signed up to work, and I'm gonna speak specifically, Scott, our experience has been in urban districts, right? We signed up not just to teach, but we signed up to change lives. And so I'm saying, like, whatever you have to,
doesn't mean you have to like change. We are still in a crisis. That doesn't mean that I just think that you should as an adult, you should give yourself permission to still go through the process, still grieve, still have anxiety, you know, still like take it easy, make it a slow process. Like, I don't think for the sake of children, you should do something above and beyond that's out of your comfort zone. Because especially, this is the deal, your natural gift is bubbly. You don't need all this coffee in order for you to get a high. That's just part of one of your natural gifts, where other people, that's not the case. So I can't blame you or judge you because you're a grump.
But here's my push with that. You don't have the right to impart that on somebody else's child. And here's the option, right? We keep saying teachers don't have options. Everybody has an option. You may not like the outcome of your option, but you have a choice, right? If you choose not to go back into your building, you may have to find another job, but you do have that choice. You do have that right. I'm just thinking about, and we've talked about this in other shows, the negative impact that teachers have had on students because of their mess. I'm thinking about all the folks you and I have worked with over the years whose stuff has negatively impacted children. And they're scarred for life because this adult couldn't get it together. And I'm even guilty of like, yo, I had a moment last week where I had to call on my prayer warriors, and you was on that list to say, look, there's something on me that I can't shake right now that's causing me to feel some kind of way. But I had to recognize like, no, this is not how I want to show up. And I had to do something about it. In spite of all that's going on as a single mother with 3 kids, working from home, doing administrative work while my kids go to school and trying to manage all these things, I don't think I'm suggesting that that's not valuable, but I am suggesting like, what's the next step? Because we can't stay stuck in this pain.
But right? Some people have been like, so sometimes you've been in pain for so long, you don't even realize that you're in that pain. So here's a prime example. And my mother-in-law was telling me, she's like, you always talk about Rob. Well, that's my baby, But he needs knee surgery. He's an old ex-football player, and he should have had knee surgery. But sometimes it hurts worse than others. But he's needed knee surgery for the last 10 years. So he's been dealing with it. As it gets worse, he deals with a little more. Because he doesn't want to have the knee surgery. So I think that ultimately, and then what happens is for many people, it gets so painful. It's not until you are overwhelmed with pain.
Agreed.
Say, okay, I'm going to do something. So everybody doesn't have I recognize that I'm different. You have some people, they're so mean and nasty. They can't even pinpoint, when did I become this way? Or they don't even realize they're negative. They're bitter. Sometimes you're hurting so much, you can't get past your own hurt that you don't see that you're now hurting, impacting.
And then I think that's the part of like leaders to be in tune, right? I remember you had done this, I don't want to call it an experiment, but you had done this like case study on what type of teachers were in your building and how did we respond to certain things. And you learned like some of us responded to praise notes. Some of us responded to gifts. What was the other thing? I can't remember. Some of us responded to I think formal accolades or something. I can't remember, but you use that as a tool to drive what you needed in your building. And so I think this is the part where like the school needs to take care of their teachers, right? Like families are taking care of their students, but administrators need to step in and be a part of this process. Let me give you an example of something that happened.
Let's take this example.
Yeah, come on.
So the example is, you're right. I had an index card per teacher's name, what they needed, or what was their thing that they liked that helped them when times were bad. The teacher, let's remember this. The teacher was threatening the students. I'm leaving. I hate it here. Woe is me. The teacher at one point, like she said, she packed up her stuff to go. But this was a teacher that students to a certain degree liked. And in front of the students, this teacher literally was having a mental breakdown. The teacher became nasty. The teacher became belligerent. Even when people went in to help the teacher and check on her, she still couldn't get it together. There's nothing then you show up how you are. There was nothing you could do for her.
But I think with that particular individual, right, like the root was way deeper than just the branches, right? The root of that is that particular teacher, and I remember having a few conversations, felt like a failure because the success wasn't there, right? It was this particular teacher had gotten a group of students who academically were performing way lower than she had ever experienced. And so to me, it spoke to like, was it skill versus will, right? Was it, hey, we just have to teach you how to scaffold down some curriculum so that you can grab kids where they are and then bring them up to where you are.
But she was so nasty. No, I remember she had like Butterfinger on her list, Butterfinger and some type of flour. It didn't matter what we brought to her because she was still nasty. And I would argue that, but then there were times it was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Some days she was like super nice. Mm-hmm. And then other days she would just do like nasty things to, you know, impact the community negatively. And so what I'm saying is that because you have all these different emotions, it's really not, she probably needed so much to pull her own self up.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to say, like, I need a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I need, you know, additional help. It was just ridiculous. I remember she started like fantasizing about what her life was, and it really wasn't like that. Like, at some degree, there's nobody at the schoolhouse that can help you.
But I think I hear you on that, Scott, but I think that's the part where the coaching, a coaching around teachers is impactful and helpful, right? Because, and I'm looking at the chat and I appreciate you, and I'm gonna make sure I shout many of you out. Scott, the chat is amazing today with folks talking. But I think there's that part where like as a coach and as a teacher leader, you know, you are now having those conversations with your colleagues about best ways to improve your practice so that we can impact children in a positive way. And I'm really big on driving people back to the why. Why did you get started with this work in the first place? And it doesn't mean that we aren't going to have bad days, but I think if we continue to root ourselves in why we're doing this work, some of those bad days can go away because we're going to drive back to what's important, and that's our students. And I'm going to say, if that's what we truly believe, right? If we're there to get our paycheck, then no, we don't care if we're showing up nasty. But if we're there to really make a difference, which I believe most teachers are there to make a difference, we certainly aren't there for the paycheck because it could never pay us enough for what we do. We need to have those tough, courageous conversations with each other about how we're showing up.
And I think so. I agree with you. I think that, you know, we do have tough, courageous conversations, but I also think that sometimes it's not the situation we're talking about. It went on definitely longer than anticipated. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a week situation. Yeah. Sometimes it's a month situation. And because in life, people go through things, mm-hmm. it's not the leader's responsibility. So Principal Almond said on here, is that not the leader's responsibility to recognize and suggest what their employees need? In mm-hmm. some cases, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a leader's responsibility to determine the position in which the teacher should be.
Yeah.
How can they support the teacher? And then determining when they just can't support the teacher. But I also suggest that so you mentioned, like, you know, we need to add more tricks to our bag. I completely agree, but I also think like it's not the teacher's responsibility to go out and seek those tricks.
But let me ask you this then, because I remember let's take it off. Let's take it off teachers and put it on students. If a teacher came to us and said, "I can't teach this kid. I can't do anything for them. I did all that I can do." Is it not that teacher's responsibility to then find another resource to support that kid in learning? Because how many folks have come to us and they're like, "I can't, they can't learn. They're dumb. They don't get it." And we ask teachers to be reflective. So why isn't that true now for the leader to have teachers then be reflective on what they need? It's this, to me, I'm looking at it as the same thing.
No, I think if you have a teacher that comes and says, "I can't," so my experience is teachers decide they can't teach the students because of behavior, not necessarily because of academic gaps.
And you didn't accept that. You would not take that. You would tell them, "Honey."
Yeah, because you get it together. You identify strategies. But I'm thinking about academic gaps, then it's a partnership, right? Either the school leader needs to provide strategies and support so that that teacher can teach, or they have to identify together, like, what could you do? So I'm thinking of like buddy teachers. I'm thinking mm-hmm. about online virtual training. You know, I'm thinking about implementing different videos so that, you know, you can identify videos in situations that you can't do. So there's different ways to do it. I think ultimately schools are in a situation right now where we have a lot of kids that they haven't seen, that they
Mhm.
have to identify where those kids are.
Mhm.
Then you have to begin to try to manage between virtual and live teaching simultaneously.
Yeah.
And in the same time, you still have to be engaging enough during this platform that students want to come back. And you're right, some onus is on the student. The student does have some responsibility to ensure that they're at school, to ensure
Mhm.
that they are doing the work. But at the end of the day, I still argue they're still kids.
I
And
agree with
there
that.
needs to
Yeah.
be this push
Yeah.
K through 12 in supporting students.
And I think too, Scott, to add on to that, like, and I appreciate this conversation today, that push doesn't start in middle school, right? That push starts well before they get there. It doesn't start in high school. And so I'm wondering too, like, I'm thinking about my 3 kids. And they make a joke like, mom sends us to school even if we sick. And she says, go drink some ginger ale and you're going to be okay, right? Like there was never a time where you weren't going to school. And even if you were sick, you were going until they sent you home because you had a fever, right? So I think I'm wondering about like, what is the conversation around school, and not just specifically school, but like education? How valuable do people honor that? For me, and I know for you in our household, it was everything. It is everything. It's our ticket. But I'm wondering, like, how do you change that mindset of someone who doesn't believe that, but they're doing it as a compliance issue? Because when somebody's vested, they're showing up. You don't even have to call to remind them. They're going to be there.
Yeah, but so to your point earlier about the teacher showing up and having this mindset and being negative, well, this is the deal. If you are a teacher that's a dream killer, and when I say a dream killer, you're negative, you may not directly say you don't believe in me, but it's very evident that you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in me. It's evident that you don't like me. Why would I show up? Why do I want to be in your presence when
Mm-hmm.
you don't believe in me?
Well, why? My question to us, right, as leaders, why are they on our staff?
Well, so I think for many reasons. Sometimes people show up and they give you the best on the interview, and then over time you see them decline. Sometimes they're a great teacher and they've been great for many, many years, and something happens and they go through this rut.
Mm-hmm. But they need a tune up, just like our cars. There's something there that I feel like I'm not going to let us as leaders get off the hook for ways in which we can continue to inspire and lead our teams. Because at the end of the day, we need them to get us the results. So I'm thinking about when we see a teacher declining, how do we step in and support them and inspire them to do the work? And I can only speak about our personal relationship. There's no way you would have ever let me fall by the wayside without pulling my coattail to say, Cook, you slipping, get it together.
Well, that's because you and I had developed a relationship, but there were lots of people over my career that I did not feel comfortable with addressing some of the habits that didn't align to what I could identify in human resources. And
I
so
got
I
that's real. That's real.
I had to be very mindful of what I say, because there are many legal reasons why at the end of the day, as a supervisor, you just can't cross the line.
I get it. And I respect it. I definitely respect
To
that because
refer
people
them,
they play that and milk it.
yeah, for sure. You
We
have to
had some.
refer them to, like, whatever is in the employee handbook, and different districts, of course, have different responses. Uh,
Mhm.
but you can't be in people's business.
I
And
agree.
and when that means you can't probe, well, you're a little different. What's going on?
Yeah. From the chat, I appreciate you all. Miss Marsh writes, Scott's courageous conversations. I love them. The push to be your best. So Senorita Lake writes, dream killers should not work with our future global leaders. Kids feel energy before we even speak to them. They deserve people who love them and see them in the light of their greatness. I love that most of the folks in the chat are writing about the importance of training, right? And you and I believe trainings are like showers. People need them daily so that they can continue to get better. It may be the one thing someone says that can totally change their day around for both positive and negative. So I feel like, as the leadership team, that's our job, to keep filling our teachers' buckets with tools and trainings and strategies and resources. And when we find them falling short, I think, it is as challenging as it can be to have some of those conversations around the data and around the work. So that can't be misconstrued in HR, right? If everything's, that's one thing you taught us, root everything back in the data, because the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, but I also think that leaders have to determine where they're lenient at and where they're not lenient. But I think that it's going to be incumbent upon leaders to really give grace, because this is going to be, I'm telling you, we've been off for an entire year.
We have.
And I go out the house twice a week now versus going out the house every single day. I am interested because I'm thinking about it. So I'm like, I wonder what my mind thought is going through, or my mindset about transitioning back to work. Like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to have a routine again that's, consistent with what it used to look like. I'm like, it's so much easier to go across the hall.
Yeah.
And
that's real.
The option to stay home, I wonder what I'm going to decide to do if that ever becomes an option, because the idea of everybody going back into the schoolhouse, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that you're right. And with like anything else that's new, we have to practice it, right? We have to adjust to it, and then we have to do it with fidelity. So to your point, how you frame this whole entire conversation was schools just aren't prepared to deal with what that looks like. We were just not, you said it from day one, we weren't prepared when, and excuse my mouth, the shit hit the fan last year, and you came up with a plan within, 72 hours on how we were going to do online learning. So I think it's new for all of us, but I think we all should root ourselves in what are some of the solutions, because COVID isn't going anywhere. And since we know that it's part of our new normal, how do we adjust? It's just like September 11th, right? There was a time when you could go to the airport and you have to go through all that security check. Now, you got to get there 5 hours early just so you don't miss your flight. So I think it's this idea of this is the new normal. Everybody need to go read Who Moved My Cheese, right? By Spencer Johnson, and figure out how to make this work for you and your family. And that's what's most important, right? How do you make this work for your family, your lifestyle, and the adjustments that we've had to make now that we are home? Because life does look different.
Yeah, very much so. I was thinking about the 3 million children that are not that aren't seen or aren't found, and I wonder if they're not found because they've experienced something that's shameful, so they no longer want to be associated with school. So we know that pregnancies are at an all-time high. Yes. So I wonder, something of like pregnancies, thinking of like venereal diseases, thinking of grief, but like reasons why we would no longer want to be associated with what we used to be associated with, and if that's one of the reasons why we have so many students missing. Yeah,
I think it's a accumulation of a lot of things, right? And it's funny, in this moment, I'm thinking about when I attended a really small church. And on Sunday, if you weren't there, like people noticed in comparison to like a big mega church, right? When maybe if you're not there, no one notices. So I'm thinking maybe some of our kids are hoping that they just go unnoticed so that they can do other things that they want to do. And I'm just thinking about just our responsibility to just call and to just check in. We can't control the parent's response or the child's response, but what we can control is our own actions, attitude, and activities, right? I can't be mad if the kid doesn't show up if I don't make a phone call to just say, hey, I missed you today. I needed to see you.
Yeah. And, I really grapple because in order for us to truly serve as students, we have to go above and beyond. Like, there has to be this appealing, because of how in our communities, how school is often valued. School has to be just as alluring as a NBA or NFL game. And I was thinking about, we have some friends, the young man is starting a new school, and they did like a parade for all the new enrolled students. They had other students welcoming them with signs. they kind of went through. People were so excited, like the school community was excited, like, we can't wait to see you, you're coming here, congratulations, you got accepted. And so they took this video, and I thought about, what if any time, including teachers too, so what if any time you were new to a school community, they had a huge parade and they welcomed you? That would truly change your perception of wanting to be there.
I agree. And all I can think about is all them park pep rallies since we had with the capes and the music in the tunnel. And give a shout out to DJ Nutridge for keeping it hype and live all the time. I think that's valuable. And it's okay to do that. And I know some of the things you and I talk about are like way to the left for a lot of people, but both of us are parents. And I'm always rooted in, how would I want somebody to do my child? And that's what drives me to do what I do for other people's children, because I want that same karma and energy to come back on my three.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I agree with you. I just want to be mindful of, I feel like the teachers are always to blame. The school is always to blame. Now, in some cases, there are situations where we can do better and we need to grow as an education community. But it's just not always the school's fault.
I agree. And I agree with that 100%. However, I think there are areas in which the school can be top notch, right? I'm not suggesting take on responsibilities that are like well out of your control, but there are areas where teachers are still falling short that have to do with curriculum. Let me give you an example. One of my good best friends called me, and we were talking about a situation happened with her son. A teacher hadn't graded for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Nothing was in the grade book. And I'm like, dang, it's hard to support the school. It's hard to support your student. It's hard to support the teacher when you don't know how your kid is doing, like those kind of things. And it's making me think about the Danielson framework that you brought to us and taught us about how you evaluated teachers. And I remember you had said one time, if your grade book is not up to date, don't even expect to get distinguished in this category because you aren't distinguished. Right. And you always talked about, hey, in the Danielson framework, you can be high and distinguished in one area, but be developing in another. And then that's OK. So that's what I mean. I mean, like, as teachers showing up right, having your slides done professionally, not having errors on documents that you send out to families. Right. How many emails have we read and we're like, did they go to college? And someone has put this out to a family. Those are the things I'm speaking about. Showing up as your very best self in your professional manner, not trying to save the world, but just being your very best self. And listen, we talked about TIF last week, and we tried our best not to parent shame, but we got some trifling parents in the world, right? Trifling. And as a result of their triflingness, it has fallen on the school. There's no reason why a kid doesn't have everything that they need. And here's the deal. There's more than enough resources for you to get what you need. We most definitely have some trifling families that pretty much blame the school because, again, they've been enabled to use the school for their benefit.
Yeah, and the school is definitely a support system, as they should, in the community. So many of the article that we referenced earlier, it talked about wraparound services and ways to get students to come back is having full wraparound services for their families so that they would feel comfortable to coming to the school for help. Which I don't have a problem with any of that. I just think that, the more you put on the school, that burden and responsibility has to be on somebody.
I agree. And as a school community, we have to stop taking on that burden if we don't want to fall short and be blamed for the burden. You see what I'm saying?
So it's political, right? So the new political craze with community schools is that in order for schools to get the federal dollars, part of the idea is that they have to have a place in the building in which the community can participate in. So it's, so the school wants to expand, they want the money, but at the same time, there's this political agenda attached to them getting an increase of money because it's federal dollars. So it's not just one entity that's putting so much pressure on the school. It's
Yeah.
really, multiple
Entities.
entities that are saying, school, you must do this, but we are not going to help you do this. So
Mhm.
now it's the responsibility of the principal or whoever the leader is
Yeah.
to then help and move the school, to identify what they need in order to help their team, meet the criteria.
Look, let's pool our money. With all the folks that's watching us today, all the friends we both have collectively, we have enough money to start our own school from kindergarten. We can go pre-K2 all the way up to high school. How many folks in with us?
Well, I'll just say this, that I'm getting too old to even want to do anything with this, especially when you said pre-K2, God no. But one of the things in my current role that I've been experiencing is having the ability to understand what it means to open a school, what's the criteria for opening up a school, what the application process is for opening up a school. So clearly, if that is something that you're interested in, this is the charter school application season now. It's been an honor just to review so many applications, and very excited to see, like, in this space as we open new schools, what's the who's interested in what,
Yeah.
and even what's needed for schools. So that's been very, very interesting. Well, our time has come to an end. I'll say that as
Yes.
you continue to identify students that are missing in your school, because it's 3 million across the country. So if every school has 5, right, then it's so important to identify those 5, because we don't want students to lose out just because they don't believe that they're truly learning online,
Yeah.
or that something else has happened, and because something else has happened, they don't believe they are valuable enough to return back to the community. So please go out, find those students, connect
Please
with
help
those
us.
parents, and give those students an opportunity. Sometimes you leave and you don't even realize why you leave, and you're just waiting for somebody to reach back out to you. So until next Saturday.
Bye, y'all. Scott, thank you, honey. I'm giving you a high five. Ready to catch it.
High
High
five.
five.